Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Hiles.
I'm Lydia Judy.
And I'm Derek Lemaster.
And this is Scream Bloody Movies, the podcast where we review a new horror movie each week. We go over the horror news, and we decide which is the ultimate Tom Atkins movie. I'm leaning towards Halloween 3, guys. I mean...
That's the only thing good about Halloween 3.
We'll get to Halloween 3 here shortly. We first have to get to the first movie, which we have just reviewed last week. So give us your thoughts on that movie, on that review. I think it went really well. I hope you liked our costumes and our surprise. Hope it went as well as we hoped it did as well. We may have already recorded that episode, and we may not have. So we may be speaking into the future about the past. It's really timey-wimey bullshit is what's going on here.
I'm not going to lie. When you started talking about that, it was real trippy. I was like, oh, where am I?
It's wibbly
What
wobbly.
day is it?
We didn't do Halloween last week. Oh. How are you guys doing this lovely evening?
I need about 3 beers. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, I've been pretty stressed.
Well, hopefully we will help relieve that stress by talking about a spooky horror movie from the 70s.
Yes. I mean, what can make you in a better mood than a 70s horror movie? You know?
80s slashers.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
just any horror movie puts you in a better mood.
70s, that's where it's at. I love the 70s.
There are some great movies,
if I could go back,
of course.
If I could go back to any time period, it would be the 70s.
What?
Derek, what time period would you go back to if you could go back?
Man, I would go back to the 80s and invest in Apple.
Well, that's a great idea, actually. It's a very...
I would go to the 80s.
Much more deep than ours. I mean, I always said that if I could go back in time, I mean, there's a couple things I'd do. Maybe one of the things I would do is I would, of course, come up with the idea for Inception. And then make it. I'll just do it shot for shot, 10 years earlier. Yes. Same thing with, it's like that movie where that guy plays all those Beatles songs.
Yeah.
And they didn't know the Beatles existed. It'd be
I bought that movie. And I have not watched it yet.
Well,
it's excellent. It's a great movie. I would recommend watching it.
I have not seen it either. I just know what it's about. But I also said that if I would go back and just write the Black Album or just learn the Black Album, pretend like I created it. And, just be like, look at this album I created.
My thing when I was little was what if I could go back and write the Spice Girls music? That's where my head was at when I was a kid. I was like, I'm gonna go back and be the Spice Girls.
I've often thought about if I went back to the 60s with modern distortion and I played a heavy metal, some thrash metal. So then I would be the pioneer of thrash metal. And then everybody would follow in my footsteps. It's like Back to the Future. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Your kids are gonna love it.
But your kids are gonna love it.
So I want you to imagine this. Just think if you could take an Avengers movie back to the 50s.
Oh,
and let them watch it. They'd be like, monsters exist.
Dude, I always thought about taking, in the 30s when you watch Dracula and Frankenstein, how terrifying those movies were. Imagine showing those guys the fucking Exorcist.
Right. Right? Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure that the first movie that they showed in a theater, there was a scene of a train approaching. And literally there was a rush to get out of the theater because they thought a train was coming.
It's like you see in movies when they go up and there's a TV and they're like, what is this magic box?
Mm-hmm.
How are the tiny people within there?
It's like Leslie Nielsen from the Creep Show.
Now, of course,
fascination is deep.
Yeah, he's totally about it. I wonder what Leslie Nielsen's character from Creep Show would think about technology now. He'd be blown the fuck away, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
because he was all about he's like, look at that picture in that VHS. I'm like,
Yeah.
Leslie.
You know how
that's
long
not-
I had to, how many miles of wire I had to run?
Yeah. Check this out. I've got 4K on my phone, bitch.
He'd be like, "What's 4K?"
Anyway,
I really love my 240.
Yeah, no kidding. So now that we went off on like some tangent, I don't know what the hell just happened. Guys, I've got some horror news. I've actually got some pretty cool stuff today.
We'll see.
Pretty. Let us be the
Spicy
judge of
tonight.
that.
We'll be the judge.
You reminded me of Freddy.
We'll see, bitch. We'll just see.
Oh, I should have said that.
You should have. Now you know what to say.
Then people would have been like, "Wow, she's brutal."
Yeah, especially if we didn't throw context.
I can edit this if you would like to replay that. We can be like a time machine.
That's true. I mean, we already are filming in the future and in the past at the same time.
I know,
Oh my
right?
gosh, right? This is
Crazy.
This is too much.
All right, guys. So on to the horror news. We need a graphic for horror news. Horror news.
Ooh, good
Like an
idea.
old style newspaper.
That could be something.
Could be.
We can. I mean, we'll throw something on this episode, and then if you guys want to comment and give us a better suggestion for whatever crap Derek throws on this episode.
Oh,
I don't know.
shoot.
We'll see. I'll see how crafty I can get if I have time.
It just says big bold letters horror news.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with this. It's actually big news, but it'll come full circle here. David Gordon Green was discussing the development of that new trilogy of Exorcist movies that we talked about on a previous episode. Remember that?
Yep.
So here's what he had to say. Where's the actual quote about it? So, yeah, is Ellen Bernstein going to be in this movie? Ellen Bernstein's going to be in the movie. And he says, I think once you accept that it's never going to be what they did in that time with those resources and that culture, which was a very different thing than the elements that we'll be working with. And I'm in a very different voice than William Friedkin. What he did was brilliant. I want to honor that and respect that to be true to a lot of ways and then evolve it into my own voice and see what happens with the fan base. So it sounds like he's approaching it the right way. This is from Joe Blow, by the way. That's where I'm quoting this from. And it was an interview with Joe Bob Briggs. So our hero, Joe Bob. Does that give you guys a little more confidence for the Exorcist movies? I mean, I kind of had some because we'll find out. I mean, we'll know the answer by now, the time this episode airs, but I had full confidence in the way he's handled the Halloween franchise so far. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that is the right approach to have. So,
I mean,
give
are
me
you
more confidence.
excited about it? I mean, still, I
Yeah.
mean, is this something that
I'll
I gotta get
watch it.
closer. I gotta get closer to it.
Yeah.
I gotta see it. I gotta be like, I gotta be in the moment. I
feel it?
I
Yeah.
try not to get too excited about things ahead of time. I'm like I've said before, I'm that person that I don't even want to know about it until it's out because I'm just not gonna wait for things.
I feel you. I mean, with,
Except with this Halloween movie, I am really excited to
Yeah.
watch it.
I've been counting down
I mean,
the days.
we've already watched it, but
and we had thoughts about it. I'm assuming that we loved it. You'll see when we release that reaction video. So let us know how we did on that. Let us know. Derek, your predictions. How much did we love Halloween Kills?
I'm gonna say we're all gonna give it a 10.
Oh, okay. Let's see
I
how that
know.
prediction goes.
I've never
don't-
given a movie a 10 in my life.
That's true.
We'll see what happens.
That's a lot of
wow.
as they would say, that's a lot of praise. Okay. We've been following this story for a while, guys.
Uh-oh.
So it's another What's another installment of, Derek?
It's got to be the Addams Family.
Nope. Close.
Dang it. Okay, then it's Toxic Avenger.
Nope. Not the Addams Family.
All right.
What's the other one?
0 for
Come on.
2.
So close to the Addams Family. It's the Munsters.
That's
Rob
actually
Zombie.
what I meant to say instead of
The Addams Family?
the Addams Family. I meant to say the Munsters. Dang it.
It is a new bit of Munster news. Rob Zombie hints in the new Munsters movie that we're going to see some Dragula action.
What?
So so we
We're gonna see how
see
Grandpa was created?
no, not Dracula.
Lily?
You know the
Dragula, the
Dracula.
song.
Yeah, and of course also Dragula. The reason that the song exists because Dragula is the name of the Munsters car.
Right.
I
Dragula.
actually did see something about that. Yeah.
So they're going to be in the
I did-
car.
I
and
did
it's
think you
in a
saw-
scene.
you said Dragula.
So here's some
so I
stuff
thought
from
so.
Rob Zombie's Insta. So here he is, the punk rods, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's some, and then there's another one here. That's not loading. Oh, there's the house again. So yeah, I mean that jacket signifies that we're going to get some kind of racing scene. Remember when Herman was in the punk rods and all that good stuff. So he's pulling more stuff from the TV show, guys. I mean, is it giving you more confidence, or is
I
it
hope
about the
so.
same?
Do we have a cast for this yet?
I don't believe so.
If Jerry
Let me see.
O'Connell is Herman, I'm out.
No, he's not. Jeffrey Daniel Phillips, and Sherry Moon Zombie will be playing Herman and Lily.
Oh God.
Nope, there you go.
Of course, Sherry Moon Zombie is going to be in it. Of course, she's going to be playing Lily. The only acting roles she gets are the ones Rob Zombie gives her.
So, Jamie, what are your thoughts on the breaking news?
I'm still excited for it. I think Rob's, I think he's talented at what he does, and I think that he's approaching this from a place of full love. Is my feeling on it, because he grew up with the Munsters. He loves them, so I think that we're gonna get hopefully a pretty fun, faithful adaptation. I hope it's not like Devil's Rejects meets the Munsters. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, I hope it's not like that too.
We don't need that. We need fun Munsters.
Do you remember the Munsters movie?
Which one? There was multiple.
There was one specific one where like Herman and Grandpa were like framed. There were like these animatronic or
Oh, is that
fake
like Munsters
versions of themselves.
Munsters Go Home? I think
Yeah, I think so, dude. You know how many times I watched that when I was a kid?
a lot, probably.
Like to this day, I can still literally see frames of that movie playing
Mhm.
out.
I remember that. Yeah.
I watched
Back
that
in the
so many
60s.
times.
Yep. I love the Munsters. You love the Munsters too, right, Lydia?
Yeah, I do, but I've never seen that movie.
Oh, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
It is
So-
really good.
This is interesting. Remember a couple weeks ago I showed you guys the poster for the Black Phone?
Yes.
That was the Ethan Hawke starring movie where he had the really cool looking mask.
Mm-hmm.
You remember it, Lydia?
No, I don't.
Well, hang on.
The
I'll pull
what?
it.
The black phone?
Yeah, the Black Phone. As in
Look
telephone.
at that crazy mask that looked like the
Yeah.
Joker.
Right here.
Oh, okay.
You remember that?
Yeah, I kind of do. Yeah.
So the trailer is out, and I didn't know if either of you guys had actually watched it.
Nope.
I haven't watched it, no.
I've watched it, and it looks pretty cool. So that trailer is out, and I just wanted to see what your guys' I was going to see what your guys' thoughts on it were, but since you haven't seen it, it is what it is. This, guys, David Gordon Green says that Halloween in script is complete and awaiting John Carpenter's notes.
Oh.
So he knows how it ends. He says, through our creative conversation, we just assumed that he would be really pissed off. So the movie is his pissed off journey through the rest of that evening. This is talking about Halloween Kills.
Nice.
Although I intended it for it to be an aggressive and chaotic chapter, I never intended it to be this vivid. Yet it was just down. I was just drawn to it in the editing room. His editor, Tim Alverson, and him talked about it at great length and what's too much and where crossing the line is. So he
That's
said,
all good news, man.
yeah, time will tell how that ending survives the court of public opinion, but we feel good about it. Talking about the ending to Halloween Kills. So apparently the ending wasn't in the script. It wasn't how the script ended. So he said we got a little weird and came up with a point. So we're going to find out. Apparently has an interesting ending. So we'll find out here soon. Actually, on this episode, we'll know what it is. And this is where he talks about Halloween ends. He says, yes.
Okay, so you're still on Halloween Kills.
Yes, correct.
Now you're going to talk about Halloween Ends.
Yeah, here's the Halloween Ends part. Halloween is complete, and actually I'm just getting John Carpenter's notes on the new draft later. We knew where it was going, and we wanted Kills to be the symphony in the middle of the book of the Strode saga. So, what do you guys think about him approaching John Carpenter for notes?
Well, duh.
Best thing that you can do, yeah.
Yeah, go to the master.
I feel like anytime that you touch a property like that, if you don't include the people who laid the groundwork to create the mythos, then you're really doing yourself a disservice.
It's kind of like what they did with the remake to Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Like they didn't get any Wes Craven input. He offered input, and they didn't give it to him. Why would you not get input from Wes Craven? He's just the master of horror. That's crazy.
And see
right?
how that movie did.
Yeah, not very well. We'll talk about it eventually. We'll cover that one. Guys, Jason Blum. This falls in line with the recent episode we did. Jason Blum updates on The Wolfman, starring Ryan Gosling, and teases more Universal monster movies.
Wolfman starring Ryan Gosling.
So Ryan Gosling's going to star as the Wolfman.
You know what? I wish that they would get Amy Adams. No, is it Amy Adams? She was the one in The Notebook with Ryan Gosling, right?
No. Rachel McAdams.
Rachel McAdams. Darn, I was so close.
Amy Adams is Lois Lane.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, they should get those two to come back and then kind of turn The Notebook into the Wolfman.
I have a scene where
that would have made the Notebook so much better for me if
it would have. Yes,
I'm not gonna lie. I like romantic movies, and so that's one of my favorite movies.
It is not one of mine.
Better?
Wouldn't it have been better?
Way better than the book. Let me tell you what. I've read 5 books in my entire life. That was one of them, and the ending was terrible. Way different than the movie. Anyway,
The Notebook would have been better if Ryan Gosling was a werewolf. I agree.
There you go.
So, thoughts on that? You guys excited for that possibility? What do you think of the casting of Ryan Gosling as the Wolfman?
I totally see it.
I think it's interesting. I don't know if I see it, but I think Ryan Gosling is a really great actor. So I'll definitely give it a watch.
I think he would be great. He's somebody that you want to root for. That's for sure. So he would be a great sympathetic lead for Lawrence Talbot. Somebody that's charming, but not as lecherous and, spying on girls through telescopes and what have you. Hopefully they do a better job.
Into her webcam.
Yeah. And then hopefully they do a better job of projecting the pentagram onto people's palms.
Oh, dear God.
This new version.
And not drawing it on with pencil.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they only mention the poem one time, I think we'll be okay.
No, dude, you've got to mention that. You got to mention that fucker at least 40.
If they don't say
every
it
other
40
scene.
times.
Yeah, basically every other line of dialogue should be when the wolfbane blooms.
It's gonna be like a Shakespearean. What? It'll just be all poetry.
What light thou yonder window breaks? In the dead of night, even a man pure of heart. And last but not least, guys, Halloween, as time of this recording, Halloween Kills premiered. Had its premiere yesterday. And Jamie Lee Curtis dressed up as her mom, Janet Leigh, from Psycho. It was a Halloween themed. You guys want to see this picture?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
So here's Jamie as Janet Leigh.
Aw,
Oh my gosh.
Tell me that's
awesome.
not the sweetest thing you've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Yep. He said, "Yep."
Here's, of course, Judy Greer. She's dressed up as, looks like Annie Hall from the movie Annie Hall. And there's Jamie, of course, as her mom from Psycho. There's her shower curtain that she was stabbed in.
Mhm.
What the heck?
And there she is with the shape.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I figured you guys would get a kick out of that. I know I did.
What a good sport.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She really knows that she is loved in this community.
Oh, yeah, she knows. She knows she's our scream queen, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and will forever be. So, yeah. And that wraps up the horror news this week, guys. Final thoughts.
I like the Wolfman news.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about the Exorcist stuff. Because, I mean, we haven't spoken on The Exorcist on this podcast yet. We haven't reviewed it. We will. But I really dig the first Exorcist, and I dig that world that it creates.
70s horror.
70s horror. You guys know what my all-time favorite horror movie is, and it's 70s horror. So,
78, right?
yep. I mean, we just talked about it last week.
Mhm.
Oh, shoot.
So, guys, now that we got the horror out of the way, let's talk about another 70s horror. Let's talk about the Amityville Horror. You guys like what I did there?
I did.
You know what? Put me on wheels, because that was a segue.
All
Definitely cutting that out of this
Buck
episode.
walking.
right.
Get on the Segway.
That's enough, Jamie.
Okay. So, the Amityville Horror. Let's, of course, like we do every week, let's talk about our experience with the Amityville Horror, and if this was our first time seeing it. Let's start with you, Lydia. What's your history with the Amityville Horror?
So, I can't remember the first time I saw this one. My first experience with Amityville Horror was the remake with Ryan Reynolds. And that scared me so bad. I watched it in my room alone. I tried to watch it in my room alone with the lights off, and I could not get through the movie. I couldn't finish it. I was so terrified. So I was like, this is one of the scariest movies. Like, I was convinced, because I didn't see the ending, that this was like the scariest movie out there. So I finally ended up watching it, and then I went back to watch the original. And I've seen the original. I don't know how many times I've seen it. I really enjoy it. But I can't remember the first time I saw this one.
Derek,
But it's a classic for sure.
you in the AVH.
So, I haven't seen this movie since it was on VHS or a rerun on like TBS. So it's been like, 2.5 decades. But there is one scene I remember from this movie, and that's the only scene I remember from this movie, and that's when that guy loses the $1,500.
That's real horror right there.
That is so stressful.
Yeah, that
Especially,
is the only
I did
scene
the,
I remember from this movie.
I did the math on that, and I did the math on another bit too, which we'll talk about when we get into it. But I did the math on that, and it's like $7,000 in today's money. So yeah,
It's a lot.
that is terrifying.
Yes.
Holy cow! When this movie come out?
Well, the movie came out in '79, but the story takes place in 1974, I do believe. 1973 is when the story takes place. So, or at least that's when the actual Lutzes allegedly were haunted.
Yeah.
So I've watched this movie since as long as I can remember watching horror movies. So I was talking to my dad about this actually earlier today, and there was a time I remember vividly watching this. I was staying at my parents' house, and what was that?
Was that the toilet?
That was my chair.
Oh God! So Derek gets a better chair, and yours starts crapping out.
I thought somebody flushed the toilet.
Let me get through my Amityville story. Damn it!
So sorry.
3 years later. So I was watching Amityville, guys. So I was watching it at my dad's, and I went to bed, and didn't think much of it. Went to sleep. Had a terrible nightmare because the movie was very scary when I was little, and I remember waking up, and I remember thinking to myself, "I'm gonna go get mom and dad. I'm gonna wake them up because they're clear down on the other end of the house from me." And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go wake them up. And tell them that I'm scared, and maybe they'll let me lay in bed with them. And then I started to get out of bed, and I realized that's clear across the house. Jody could get me within that time frame. So I stayed in bed, and I covered myself up. And I remember telling mom about it years later, and she was like, "Oh, why did we let you watch that? You should have totally came and got me." And I was like, "No, I was good. It's good to bask in the fear."
Yeah. That's how you know you're alive.
That's how you know you're alive. So
when you're just terrified under your covers as a kid.
The same thing happened when I saw It the first time.
Oh man.
I was sitting in the my bed was like in the middle of the room, like it wasn't against any walls, at least on the sides. So I remember after that movie, I laid in the middle of the bed because I was convinced that Pennywise was going to reach out from under the bed and get me.
Ooh, so scary.
Yeah. So let's get on with this review. Let's start the review of the movie itself. So what do you guys think of the opening of this movie? It opens with the house with the red. It's red tinted, and the two top windows are lit up. They look like eyes. And it's playing Lalo Schifrin's very creepy score. What are you guys' thoughts on this intro? You're hearing it in your head, aren't you?
Yeah.
If they would have stopped the movie right there, it'd be a perfect 10.
Yeah.
The way that everything was lit, the fact that it's dark, you've got the two windows in the very top. They look like eyes. And then you start seeing the flashes and the gunshots. And it's like the different rooms that he had moved around to kill his family. I thought that was brilliant, and I loved the opening. It was great.
Yeah, I really enjoy it too. Lydia.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very strong opening. I really like the red at the beginning, and it just kind of tells you like this is like, something really bloody happened here, and it's like, it's like a warning, like straight up at the beginning, like this is gonna be scary.
Yeah, it totally sets the tone, like foreshadows the evil that's about to be committed. And then we, like Derek said, we start to see the flashes in the window, and we hear the bangs each time. It's a brilliant way to shoot that. And actually, I would argue that there's a bit late here in a few minutes when we see the actual murder. I feel like seeing the bangs in the window is even more effective than seeing the actual murder.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I really enjoyed that because it's just so we get a scene with the police officer, and this police officer comes back later, right? And he's investigating, like they're wheeling out the bodies. They're talking about how, all the family's all dead. They don't know about Ronnie DeFeo catching him yet, all that stuff. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Back to the Future principal is the other cop.
Yep, Mr. Strickland.
Yeah, did you see that, Lydia?
No.
Well, that's because you're a slacker, Judy.
Yeah. Nobody likes slackers. Your old man was a slacker.
Dang it. I feel so attacked right now.
So yeah, Strickland's in this. I thought that was funny. I had to put that in there. I was like, whoa, what's he doing in here? So then from that scene, we basically do a time jump to the DeFeos buying the house. So they're already, the realtor is walking through, which this realtor reminds me of how Nanny probably is as a realtor. Can you just imagine Nanny in that part? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, did you go look for your house with her?
I did.
So we both went. We've been there. We've been in this where we're
Yeah.
looking for a house with Nanny, and she was exactly.
Yeah. Nanny is our grandma, and yeah, she was my realtor, was Lydia's realtor, and this woman reminds me of Nanny. So
shout out to Nanny.
shout out Nanny.
If you listen to this episode.
I don't think she listens, just like Sarah doesn't listen.
Jake doesn't listen anymore either.
Yeah. Oh, good. We can make fun of both of them mercilessly. So they're going through and they're walking through the whole house, and what is cool is so they know about the murders and they're still interested in buying it because the house is dirt cheap for them. Like it's $80,000. I did too. $80,000. So $80,000 in 1973, when the movie is supposed to take place, is roughly the equivalent of $400,000.
Yep.
This is a $400,000 house. So they're basically spending $400,000 to buy this home, and judging by George's financial situation, it doesn't seem like that's a viable option because I don't think Kathy works. Does Kathy work in this?
I'm not that I remember.
Well, also, so he makes a comment that the house is easily worth $120,000,
Mm-hmm.
which would equate to about $650,000. So they're getting a great deal on this house.
Yes.
And yeah, he does make a comment. We can eat casserole for the next.
Yeah. We can stretch it. Yeah. We can stretch it. Welcome to House Finances, the podcast where we speak of. But I did think that was very funny that we have like a whole scene of them sitting. It's in the attic discussing the finances of this house.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. If now I don't have 400,000, let alone 600,000. But like if it was at the very tip top of your budget, a house like that, man, you gotta do everything you can to get that house. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, they probably wish they wouldn't have. Actually, that's not true. I think
hindsight.
I think the real Lutzes are glad they did because they made buku bucks. But the movie Lutzes are not so happy with this decision, probably, at the end of this movie. But, so, let's just get that out of the way right now, though. This story did not actually happen.
Right.
But
although what did come out of this is that creepy picture of the little boy that they took a snapshot. I'll put that right here.
Yeah, that was a part of the Warrens' investigation. What's interesting also, while we're talking about it, which we'll get into the facts of the actual case later, but is that nobody after the Lutzes ever experienced another haunting in that house.
Coincidence?
Maybe.
Did it follow them like at the end of Poltergeist 2? Who knows? Which, stay tuned, we'll do Poltergeist eventually. That's a great one. So yeah, this is the scene where we were talking about, where they're walking through the different rooms, and as they're going through the rooms, as they're opening the door, we flash back to to Ronnie DeFeo shooting the inhabitants of the room. What do you guys think of this editing choice?
It would have been brilliant if when they get on the stairs, the film doesn't freeze for like a good 3 or 4 seconds.
Yes, I noticed that too.
I think it could have, it really could have been like very special, but that took me out of it. Because at first I was like, wait, did I lose internet connection? Like, did it just freeze?
I did the same thing. I thought my streaming stopped. I was like, and then it kept going. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think that's in the actual thing.
Yeah,
because it's very
awkward.
That bit is very sloppily edited, that part. But the idea, I think the concept is strong. I think it's a strong idea.
Yeah, I think it's a strong idea too. I had a lot of issues with the editing throughout this movie.
I do too. Yeah.
We'll touch on more on that, but yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing with this movie, guys. It's 2 hours long. And in that 2 hours, not a lot really happens.
No.
So we're going to kind of go by this beat by beat, but it's not like, when you think of a horror movie, especially that's 2 hours long, you're like, oh, so a lot of shit probably happens, a lot of scares. Not really. There's a lot of scenes of them talking about like the temperature in the house.
I mean, that does kind of set the...
Yeah, it ties into the story, but it's kind of like the poem from fucking Wolfman. Like, he talks about how cold it is, like every other scene. He's like, it's damn cold. How cold is it? Damn cold. It's 74. It feels like 32.
I did say
It
that.
was 72.
It was 72. It feels like 32 is what he said.
Yeah, you said 74.
Oh, whatever. Either way.
You're like, okay, police.
So the next big scene that happens is the arrival of Rod Steiger's character, Father Delaney.
Mhm.
And he comes to bless the house. Now, he goes into the house and hollers for everybody. Nobody answers. And then he starts hearing kids upstairs. He thinks that he hears kids laughing. So he walks upstairs. And I'm glad that they added that stuff in there, because when I was thinking about this scene coming up, I was like, why the hell does this guy just go into their house? Like,
Yeah, what a perv.
what are you doing? But he hears them, so he thinks that the family's up there. And when he goes up there, he sees them out the window, and they're all outside, playing with the dog and having fun outside. And he tries to open the window to tell them that he's there, but it won't open. So then he's like, oh, what the hell? I'm here. I'll just bless this room. I'll start in this room. And as he starts to bless it, the door shuts. And then he notices one fly. Then he looks away. And then he notices like a swarm of 40,000 flies on the window. Then he starts coughing, having trouble breathing. The flies start coming. And then he hears a voice say, "Get out." And of course he does. And he basically leaves the house. This is one of the most famous scenes in this movie. What do you guys think of it now? Does it hold up? And is it effective? Lydia.
I think it kind of holds up, but it's kind of not effective anymore. It holds up because it's really impressive and terrifying that there are that many flies in that room. And it's really disturbing to see like that sweaty guy in there with like flies crawling all over him. Jake was like, how did they get that to do that? I was like, they probably put poop all over him. I don't know.
Rod Steiger just was a stinky man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I think he's just actually sweaty. And they just pumped this room full of flies. So that's really disturbing. But I remember the Get Out being a lot scarier. I remember the hype of people who had seen it, who told me about it. And I think that's a lot in this movie, is the hype of it. Of like, oh, and then this happened, and then the goo in the walls, and you know, like,
yeah. Which have a lot to say about
scarier.
the end too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Derek.
So I'm going to go off on a tiny tangent and I'll come back, okay? So like just in the last 20 years, so if you go back to like 1998 to what Lydia just said, like the hype of the movie, right? It's a true story, like all these elements that give this movie this clout,
Mystique.
right?
Yeah.
Now you can easily do a Google search and like you can debunk like all these different things about it. So it definitely lessens that the mystique of it a little bit. So that being said, I don't know that it holds up very well. I mean, it is very impressive the number of flies that they got into that room, and how they were able to do those things. But the voice seemed really kind of tacky. It wasn't necessarily as like demonic as it could have been. It was more like old man yelling at you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It didn't sound like a disembodied voice.
Right.
Like
it didn't sound threatening.
Yeah, like it feels like some kind of demon sounding thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just some guy going, "Get out." And I mean, I thought it was fucking Dr. Loomis. Lonnie, get your ass away from there. So yeah, I agree. And here's where a big problem of the movie with me starts, actually, is here. Is when I started to notice this. Now, Lydia, I talked to Derek about this a little bit. I'm about to ruin this movie for you.
Oh no.
You're never going to be able to watch it without noticing this now. And then you're going to start a game, which I kind of started. I didn't put an actual tally, but you're going to start counting these. This movie is definitely a product of 1979. In every other scene, there is a zoom. And I don't mean like a push-in. I mean like an old school zoom.
Yeah.
It'll start on something, then it'll zoom into something. And then it'll zoom out from that angle.
Huh.
And it started in the fly scene. And then after that, like every other scene, even the scene where they make love, there's those zooms. Basically the button to every scene in this movie after that point either ends with a zoom in or a zoom out.
That's interesting.
So the Amityville Zoom is what I call this movie.
I don't think that's going to ruin it for me. I think maybe that's why this movie stands out, because of that, because you don't get that in, I don't know, it's like gives it its own style, kind of.
Well, I mean, it gives it the style of a TV movie is what it looks like a TV movie from the 70s. Like those, because it's all a bunch of close shots. There's some good shots in here. There's some kind of wides, but a lot of it is close zooms, which is very indicative of television in the 70s especially. It makes the movie feel smaller instead of have more scope.
Right.
You know what? I think that so the thing that the last movie had going for it that we reviewed was the actual directing style. Those
yes, the
crazy
movie
shots and
yes, he's talking
Like the
about
last
Evil
movie.
Dead.
Yeah.
He's talking about Evil Dead, which also has
I
great
actually
shots.
wasn't sure like where we were in the timeline
Yeah,
where this
yeah,
was gonna,
yeah.
so I didn't want to like just say it. But like that movie you remember because of the camera angles, because of like the some of the crazy shots that they did in that movie.
And the
this
energy.
movie,
The energy of Evil Dead. It propels forward. This kind of lurches along. And we'll get into that.
The energy in this definitely could have been amplified a lot. I just imagine when we were talking about the voice, the Get Out voice, if that was done like by James Wan, it would have been terrifying.
Yes. James Wan
you could have had
should do a remake of this.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I want to see James Wan do Amityville.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Me
that be
too
good?
now. Yeah. He would fucking crush this movie.
He definitely would.
we'll start a
crush it.
petition next week.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
let's
Right
do
now
it.
we'll
Let's
get
get
back
this
into
going.
this movie, but so as they're going through the house, there's a bit where like I said, there's a lot of just moments where stuff really doesn't happen. Like, I mean, it's domestic stuff in the family, and you kind of they build a little bit of like, so there's something not quite right, but it's not like the level of like Poltergeist where it's like there's some definitely weird shit going on here. It's just like subtle things, little subtle things. And so one of the things I noticed is when he goes to tuck in, so the kids play hide and go seek, and the little girl like passes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to take her upstairs to bed. George does. And when he takes her upstairs, he turns off the lamp. And the lamp is the lamp that was from the original DeFeo house. It was shot during the murders and put back together. So I thought that was an interesting touch that they had to have added to the movie. I don't think that was probably a real thing. Who knows? It might have been. It might have came furnished. But I thought that was interesting. And then we just get, basically this is where we start getting George feeling, his mood's starting to change. He's starting to be a little more grumpy, and he's starting to talk about how cold it is, how he can't get warm. And it's starting to kind of drive a wedge between them a little bit. Between the Lutzes, between Kathy and George. And around this time, George decides that he's feeling a little better. He goes in, and Kathy is doing like some kind of like staring at herself in the mirror routine that she does, I guess.
No, it actually reminded me of somebody like she used to be a dancer, and she
Yeah, Yeah, that's what it was. But we find that out a little bit once we see her leg warmer.
Her one leg warmer.
Her one leg warmer. But she's like staring in the mirror. She's wearing like a shirt. You can almost see her boobs. And then he comes in and he starts like kind of flirting with her a little bit. And then she takes off his shirt. And we get the cringiest love scene I've ever seen in my life.
Well, no, he stands in the doorway and scares the shit out of her.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
It wasn't like he came in and was flirty. He scared the shit out of her.
I mean, if that were my wife and she was doing that, I would have let her continue.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like
stood
she
there
was
like,
she like almost had a heart attack.
She did.
Like,
and then she's like, "Who loves you?"
Point. Yeah, this is like really good juncture to just talk about like what's this actor's name? It's Brolin. What's his real name?
It's James Brolin. It's Josh Brolin's
James
dad.
Brolin. Yeah, like he is the epitome of what you think of a man's man is. You know what I mean? Like he's rough, he's kind of quiet, he's got the beard, very rugged. Just think of him as your stepdad.
Yeah.
How intimidated you'd be.
Yeah, I mean,
that's before he's creepy.
But they try to show his sensitivity.
Oh yeah,
in the movie,
that plays very well. In the beginning.
They try to show that he's, he sees these kids as his kids in this movie. Like he's trying to make this life, and but yeah, in this scene in particular, the way they shoot this love scene is hilarious to me. It made me laugh so hard because it's like these. Again, zoom ins and then into like blurriness, and then they come out of the blurriness into them like doing the Kevin Costner head tilt kiss. Just like hilarious. So then the daughter comes in and interrupts their sexy time. So she takes her back to bed, and that's where she talks about Jody, and the window was open, and it's she's like, "Oh, it's so cold in here," whatever. So she turns down everything, and then they go back to bed. And that's kind of it for that scene. But around this time is when George starts waking up every night at 3:15. And we find out, we know the significance of that is at the beginning of the movie, Principal Strickland said that they were shot. They were, the deaths probably occurred between 3 and 3:15.
Yep.
So George starts waking up at 3:15 every. Meanwhile, Father Delaney during this time is like trying to reach the Lutzes, but he's having some big time trouble. He tries to call them. He gets random blisters on his hand when he tries to call them. He tries to take the other priest. I don't know what his name is, so I call him Young Priest. He tries to take Young Priest to the Lutz's house, and the steering wheel starts messing up, and they start going on the traffic. Then the hood pops up and they wreck. What do you guys think of all of this Father Delaney stuff? I'm just going to lump it all together. What do you guys think of this part of the movie, this subplot?
I don't even know what to think about it.
I feel like it was an idea that they had, like, hey, we need to involve this priest, but then they just didn't know how to really execute it and weave it into the end. Because I mean, to the extent she goes to visit him at one point and he's nowhere to be found because he's went blind, and it's just like that's kind of where that segment ends, and it's very anticlimactic, his involvement in this. Because I mean, even the part where he tries to get the church and they're like,
we'll get to that scene. We're going to get to that scene. Yeah. What do you think, Lydia?
Yeah, I genuinely don't even. It's not a part that stands out to me very much.
Yeah, it's kind of a missed opportunity, because I get what they're going for. I really do. Like, they're going for that this guy is he knows the danger that they're in, and this evil force is stopping him from getting there. So the family is kind of doomed without his involvement and that sort of thing. But it doesn't build that very well. Instead, you just get these kind of weird vignettes with this priest they kind of feel disjointed from the rest of the movie, which is, I mean, the movie itself kind of feels disjointed, right? I mean,
I will say that him trying to contact the family, the scene you were talking about, is the first time I think that George really, was it Kim? What was it, Kathy? Was it Kathy? I think that's the first time Kathy really notices like something is wrong with George, because she picks up the phone, but she can't hear anything, and she hangs up, and he walks into the kitchen and is like, "Who's that?" And, "Oh, yeah, I don't know. It was whatever." And he was like, "It was probably some click call from China."
Yeah.
So when she picks up the phone and she can't hear him, and she's like clicking the phone, like hanging, that's like hanging up, isn't it?
In the old days, days, not so much. Like, I think it was kind of like tick, 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 working with the operator.
Me and Jake looked at each other and we were like, she's like, well, no wonder she can't hear anything. She just hung up on him 100 times.
That's what they used to do. They used to jiggle that thing, the top one. Tick, 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 tick. But yeah, I mean, operator, give me a click call 234.
I'm surprised that she wasn't doing the rotary dial.
Yeah, I guess that's where it confused me. I was like, I even said out loud, I was like, do I not know how phones worked?
Now that would be like us just hitting the red button over and over.
Yeah.
Tap, 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 tap.
Come on. Are you there, Father Delaney? Now we also have caller ID, so she'd be like, "Who was that?" "Oh, that was Father Delaney. I couldn't hear him. Probably should go over there tomorrow."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you wouldn't have to have a scene where people go to the library to investigate now. You can just do it at home.
Yeah, right.
We're going to kind of jump around a little bit here because the middle of this movie just kind of all blends together, So we're going to hit the big beats, if that's okay with you guys.
Yep.
Is that fine?
That's fine with me.
Instead of going, necessarily in order, because around this time,
take us 5 hours. Is that what you're saying?
No. Yeah, exactly. So around this time, we're introduced to Kathy's brother. She has a brother, and he's like sitting at the thing, counting his money, counting his money over and over. And this is what you talked about at the beginning of the thing. Well, hi there, Como. How are you doing?
All right, I guess it's time to introduce Como to everybody. This
that's
is my girl, Como. Thank you for coming to see me. How's it going? What do you think of the movie? Was this a good movie? Yeah? Okay. That was our Minute with Como.
Yeah.
A new segment.
New segment.
I guess she's just hanging out. I don't know what she's doing.
So, he's counting the money, and we find out that it's money for the caterer. And he needs it. It's $15,000. So we watch him put it into his jacket.
$1,500.
Yeah, $1,500. Yeah. So he puts it into his jacket pocket, and then he goes over and hugs Kathy, and then George walks in and he looks like crap, and he's like thinks he's coming down with an illness because he just can't get warm. He's not feeling well, and they go to leave, and he reaches for the money and can't find the money, and it's like, oh my god, the money has disappeared. So he starts like looking throughout everywhere. By the way, this is such a so allegedly, Ronnie DeFeo's lawyer alleges that they came up with the Amityville Horror. He came up with the idea with the Lutzes over a bottle of wine and some tape recorders, and they started naming out scary ideas about what happened in the house. And I mean, maybe some stuff spooked them out, but the bottom line is they couldn't afford the house. That was the bottom line. But this is allegedly what he says, and I'm not saying it's true or false, but he says they were coming up with ideas, and he mentions the money thing, and that totally sounds like something somebody would come. Wouldn't it be scary if money just disappeared and we couldn't find it?
Yeah,
Such
that
like
would be scary.
That would be terrifying. Yeah, but I don't know what the ghost would do with it. Did they hit up the strip club? I don't know. What the demons are
Well,
doing.
I mean, if you have a mischievous ghost and you're obviously like nervous and counting this money, then he even asks his sister to count it again. You know, maybe you're like, ha, 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 I'm gonna take that money.
Yeah,
I
but
do
now
love how. Oh, go ahead.
your version of the ghost sounds like it's a prankster and not an evil villain that's trying to.
Jody plays a pivotal role in this. She's the imaginary friend or ghost, but I don't know.
We will get to Jody.
So maybe that's just a something that I missed in this movie, because I feel like there is Jody, who is the little girl's imaginary ghost friend, and then there's the demonic presence.
No, they're all the same.
I got that they were two different things.
No,
Okay.
they're all the same. Jody is a manifestation of the evil that the little girl can see. That's why she tells her about the murders and how she wants her to stay there and play with her forever. So,
yeah, I misread that one.
So, they can't find the money, so George says he's going to foot the bill. He'll write a check for the guy. Don't worry about it. We'll write a check. So they go off to the wedding with the boys. And Missy stays home with the babysitter. And this is a big Jody scene. So, like, the babysitter is, like, you know, the typical 70s teenager. The giant retainer. The, like, smart mouth. Don't get smart with me. Like, I mean, Laurie Strode, she is not.
She is not a Laurie Strode.
If Michael Myers attacked that place, the kids would have been fucked, basically is what I'm saying. So she goes to get the pajamas in the closet, and the closet door shuts. And then she, like, freaks out way too quickly. Immediately flips her shit and starts banging on the door and bloodies her knuckles and is banging. And we see the outside, and we see the chair rocking, and we see Missy just sitting there. What do you guys think of this whole closet scene?
I think it's pretty scary. You know, I've babysat before and I've house sat before, and it is weird sometimes going to someone's house and being there at night when, like, no one's there or kids are asleep, and there's always, like, just, like, an uncomfortable feeling. So, like, I feel like this would be scary for sure.
Yeah.
Like, this is a scary scene for me, for sure.
Derek.
I definitely felt the tension in this scene. Especially, like, whenever George gets home and he's like, there's no lock on the door. Like, why didn't you just open the door? It adds some, like, gravity to, like, what happened to that. Yeah. And then the fact that the little girl just didn't help her. And
not only didn't help her, she, like, fell asleep.
Yeah. I'd get bored looking at the door too. But anyway. But yeah, and just and also, like, when she's banging on there and you see her knuckles getting bloody and then the light goes out. Like, if you are in that situation, like, I don't know if I can think of something more scary than that.
Than just
I'd
the
probably
light
have
going
wet
out.
myself.
Derek is afraid of all the darkness.
Like that scenario.
I think everyone would be afraid of the dark in that scenario for sure.
I would have taken off that retainer and started chipping through the door. Is what I would have done.
Just kick the shit out of it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think this is one of the better scenes in the movie. I think it's one of the best uses of suspense because, yeah, you can put yourself there because everybody's either, which is kind of the appeal of the first Halloween, is everybody's been babysat or everybody has been a babysitter, one of the two, right? So putting yourself in that situation of being in a stranger's house, like you said, Lydia. I remember I used to house set for a friend of mine, and their house was supposedly, like, really haunted. And I didn't experience full-on hauntings, but I experienced some stuff I couldn't quite explain, some creepy stuff. I remember once being in the kitchen making food and just feeling like somebody was watching me in the other room, and I got that, like, you know, goose pimples on my arm, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go back to the living room. Need to go back. So I made my food. I like hurry up, and then I sit in the couch and I look around. And I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm fine with this. The worst night was when I decided to watch The Exorcist. That was not a great idea. Derek, you stayed that night.
Was I drunk?
Yeah, probably.
I don't remember it. Must have been after the Wii bowling.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah. So they're at the wedding, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's just bits in this where it's just like it kind of develops like their story, but it doesn't really have anything to do with like the horror of the Amityville Horror. Mm-hmm. Like, they're at the wedding, and the caterer comes up, and he's like he's like the freaking paperboy from Better Off Dead.
$2.
You know, I need cash. He's like follows him to the men's room with a paper towel. Give me some cash. I don't have cash, man. All I have is the check. So and he's like, you're gonna take the check and you're gonna like it. So it like develops George as being more of an ass, but in the stakes, I guess, of it.
Well, and the fact that darn, I forgot her name anyway. So
Kathy?
Kathy. Anyway, the fact that Kathy is outside the men's room and she's witnessing her husband act this way, and just from all the background that we got, like, this is completely out of character for him. I'm sure that had to be pretty shocking.
Yeah, but also it's a guy that's not feeling well, and this dude harassing him in the bathroom. I would tell that guy to fuck off if it were me too. Like, dude, well, we told you the situation. We told you the situation, but most importantly, I'm trying to pee. I don't need you in here.
Well, and to be fair, his intuition was accurate. Check bounce.
Yes, the check 100% bounce. In a scene a little later, that his business partner comes and visits him and finds out that he hasn't paid the payroll checks. He hasn't been into the office. He doesn't know what day it is because all he can concentrate on is cutting wood to feed the fire because he's always so cold. And he's waking up every night at 3:15. There's a scene where he wakes up, one of the first times he wakes up, and he goes down and investigates the boathouse with a dog. Mm-hmm. And then he goes and sits back down, and there's this cat scare.
Oh my God.
What are your guys' thoughts on the cat scare?
It did not work. Not even a little bit.
What
Lydia,
happened?
do you remember the cats?
No, the cat just jumps out and what is loud.
You don't remember this?
Outside the window.
No, George is sitting. He goes after that whole scene. He goes to light a cigarette. He sits in a chair, and then a cat just appears in the window and goes, "Meow!" And he jumps. He's like, "Oh!"
Is it like really loud meow too?
Yeah.
I feel like I do remember that.
Yeah. Derek, you pointed this out actually about how much you hated this bit.
Yeah, it did not. First off, it wasn't scary at all. I just don't think that part aged well at all.
That's 100% like an old school like classic Hollywood scare trope is a cat jumps out or to scare you. I mean, it's even in some of our favorite movies like in Halloween 2 there's a cat scare. It's just overdone, but if you do it right, it's still decently effective and it's fun. This wasn't either. Yeah. It just was there.
This was not, yeah. And it was a black cat to boot, so
maybe it was
they
church.
Were getting all the tropes.
Maybe it was church. Winston Churchill. Who it was. Before he decided to move in with the Creeds. He should have stayed with the Lutzes, it sounds like. Things didn't end too well for him. So around this time is when we get the big blow off scene that you were talking about earlier with Father Delaney and the his like superiors at the church. So the church is basically wanting him to cut loose from all of this, mainly to like avoid bad publicity and what have you. They don't want to get involved in this. they've got to get the swimmers into Amityville. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm confused because the mayor from Jaws is one of the priests.
That's where I knew him from. I was like, yeah, he looks so familiar. I can't quite place him.
He was trying to open the beach regardless of the shark attacks.
Just that's just so his character.
It
Just
is.
ignore all the dangerous stuff. Who cares?
Hey, he's typecast. He definitely was
Whatever's
typecast.
better for business.
Yes. So this scene, I think Rod Steiger gives a great performance in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
When he starts to kind of explain, listen, I'm a psychotherapist. I know I know psychology. I know what's real. I know what's not real. I know what my eyes see, what my ears hear. I know what I can feel. And he goes through this whole thing. And then at the end of it, he's crying. He's like literally in tears because he knows that they're just going to let this family, that their fate be what their fate may be. What do you guys think of this scene? And Steiger's
Lydia,
performance in this scene.
I'll let you go first because I got some thoughts.
Okay. Lydia.
I don't really know what to... I can't really remember this scene very well.
The pre-scenes just blow right by you, don't they?
I think I just zoned
They're
out.
that memorable.
I was also really distracted while I was watching this, so just to put that out there. I'll just let you take it away on this one, Derek.
All right, so here's my thoughts. He gives a very passionate speech. I mean, it's a very good speech, and you can tell he's got a personal relationship with this family.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's
we find
extra.
out. We find out from Kathy that he helped her through her previous marriage.
Yeah. So he's got a personal involvement with this. He senses the danger. He also senses that it's demonic, and that speech is very passionate. And then you get Dickhead, who comes
Jaws
in
mayor.
here and essentially tries to assort or dominate the situation and assert himself as the superior. I would have lost it on that guy. You can't give that type of speech and then not follow it up with, oh, well, you're not going to help, then I'll find someone who does. Or attack him.
And that's what you think,
that's
what the natural arc for the character you would think would be, right?
Exactly. I was
you
very
would
disappointed
think
when he
you
didn't
would
do
think that after he was turned down by the church, that he would say, fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to save this family. Instead, he just goes and prays in the altar.
Bows his head. Yeah.
And then loses his eyesight for no reason.
Yeah. I was very
So let's just
disappointed. I was very disappointed in his
lump it
character.
all together right now. Let's just lump it all together with the priest stuff. Because his ending is he goes blind and then he's just sitting on a park bench. And that's the last time we see him.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys, so thumbs down on the whole priest storyline?
Yeah, I think it kind of brings the story down.
Yeah. No bueno. Okay. So let's get back to the Lutzes. George goes outside, or George goes to the library to find out, because he goes down to the basement. His buddy comes over, when I told you about when he was chopping the wood. His buddy comes over and tells him that they're running low on stuff, and he goes and, his friend basically said, or his girlfriend says, hey, there's something wrong with this place. I don't want anything to do with it. And so she stays in the car. He goes and talks to George. And then later on, George is he shows him the basement, and he's digging at the dog's digging at the basement. And he's like, what are you doing? Stay away from there. He's digging at a wall in the basement. Mm-hmm. So he meets, after George goes and looks up the blueprints to the house, he meets with his buddy, his coworker. And they have basically an altercation where he says, hey, you're bankrupt in the city. Some caterer's running around town telling him that you stiffed him, which, by the way, Is this in the fucking catering circles? Like, some caterer running around flapping his gums. But anyway,
it was the previous form of Yelp.
It was called Bitch Around Town.
Yeah, it's gossip.
George Letts, I know him. Stiffed me for $1,500 after he yelled at me in the men's room.
Yeah. Well, and their interaction, because you're talking about the bar scene now, right?
Yeah, we're at the bar scene. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, the bar is called The Witch's Brew, which is taken directly from the novel. The novel talks about George frequenting this bar, and it was the same bar that Ronnie DeFeo frequented, except that the Witch's Brew doesn't exist in real life, so there's no way that any of that could actually have happened. So,
Yeah.
But either way, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, so he pretty much provokes him into punching him. And then it was, this is a weird scene. I don't know if it was like the macho thing to do, but after
70s.
after he punched him out, he's like, all right, now are you ready to talk? Like all that was a ploy just to get him to open up and punch you? I don't understand. It was
So
weird.
listen, honey, I'm going to go meet George at the bar. Here's the plan. I'm going to provoke him into punching me right in the mouth. And then we're going to have a discussion.
Talk.
So yeah, basically he starts talking with his with her and the psychic woman, and she starts talking about how she felt an energy at the house and tells the backstory of John Ketchum, which we get more of a backstory for in the 2005 remake, actually.
Yeah, quick question.
Yes.
Because at this point, he's got the book that he's going through with them, right? That he got from
Yes,
the library.
that he stole from the library.
Which it's free to check books out.
But he
Right?
didn't want them to know that he was checking out occult books, is what I gathered from it, right? Isn't that what you gathered, Lydia?
That was the other option, yeah.
Like
I thought
when
it was
he
one of
steals
two
the
options.
book, it's so that way, like, people don't know that he's checking out this book on the occult.
Why did he?
I just thought
why
he
was he
stiffed the
looking
library
at
for a
it?
bunch of money.
Because I guess he was thinks that the house is haunted at this point, and because he's experiencing stuff. Remember, at this point he also, by the time this happens, we skipped a bit where they hear noise and then the front door just blows out, right? So this is where the front door blows out earlier in this. So the front door blows out. They call the police. They see that it was blown off the hinges from the inside. The basement door was kicked in from the inside as well. And that's when he's talking to. That's when the dog's down there digging at the wall, and the police officer shows up. This is another thing. This police officer's point in this movie is completely pointless, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we'll put a pin. Let's put a pin in the Witch's Brew for a second. Let's talk about this police officer for a minute. So he shows up to help investigate this crime or this break-in, and he tells him it looks like everything was broken in from the inside, but the windows were shut and there's no signs of forced entries in the basement. So he's kind of confused on what's going on. He thinks something fishy's going on, and that's all fine. But then he spends the rest of the movie, inexplicably, just brings him back to just follow certain characters around. Just follow certain characters around, and that's kind of it. And then he runs into the priest, and then the priest says, "Oh, I don't know what's going on." And he says, "All right." That's the end of his arc.
I'm just starting to wonder if any of this movie actually made any sense.
It's starting to feel like it doesn't, right?
You know what? I think we should do? I think we should buy this movie and then recut it ourselves
To make it make sense.
to make it make sense. Because
That's a great idea.
I think it would
ridiculous
be.
characters. It would be
I think
an
it
hour
would-
and a half long,
Yeah, it'd be an hour and a half long, first of all, so it'd be a lot tighter.
and it would make more sense.
Yeah. So back to the story at hand. Basically, George and we're starting to see more friction between George and Kathy before this happens. but nothing too major yet. But like we see the grocery thing where she drops the groceries and then, but it's actually, he's kind of nice about it. He goes and helps her pick them up anyway and everything.
That's after he like almost swings an axe at her head.
Well, she does scare him when he's holding the axe. He says, "Don't you do that with a man with an axe." And then,
Yeah.
Well, because I thought she like pinched his butt or something like that.
She did, I think. And
She
then
like, poked him or something.
yeah, finger right in the anus.
What do they call that?
He's like, don't do that with an axe.
Now I see why he was upset. It's violating someone.
That's got a name. I forget that. Anyway, the shocker? No. Never mind. Moving on.
The episode's unairable. So yeah,
she's doing it in a flirtatious way, and he does kind of turn it there, but he
does.
had like a
and that's what it's supposed to start to develop. Also, the boy gets his hand crushed in the window. Around this time as well.
This is also pointless, by the way.
It's actually when his friend came to visit. The window falls down on the boy's hand, and they can't get the window up. It takes both of them, two men using all their strength to open the window. And then they're like, "Isn't it weird that none of his bones were broken?" I was like, well, that actually kind of sounds like less demonic than good luck. I mean, wouldn't you think the demons would be like, break all those bones?
Yeah, it does.
That was definitely an odd thing.
Yeah.
This movie
to dwell on.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Yeah. So I think that catches us back up to where we were with the Witch's Brew. I didn't write a bunch of stuff down because there was not a lot to say about a lot of it, so I just skipped some bits. But so yeah, we get to the that Witch's Brew scene, and then at the same time that's going on, Kathy is at home and she tries to visit the father. She can't see him. She tries to call him. He answers, but he goes to answer, but he can't. And then she just can't get a hold of him. And then there's a knock on her door randomly. She goes over and it's like this neighbor, this bum-looking neighbor with a six-pack. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I tried to get here sooner, but I was trying to welcome you to the neighborhood." And the phone rings, so she's like, "Hang on a second." She goes to answer the phone. Nobody's on it. It comes back, and the guy is gone.
What tie-in other than that scene did this guy have?
None. I don't know. It's supposed to just be creepy, Creepy because he was there, now he's not. So was he a ghost? And was she right for not letting him in? Who knows? So, she goes upstairs and she goes to tuck Missy in. She's talking to her about Jody again. And she says, "You scared Jody." Because she hears her singing, "He's got the whole world in her hands." And she goes in and the rocking chair stops and she's like, "Well, Jody ran out the window." "Well, I better go say something to her." This is when we see the Jody eyes. When I was a kid, my imagination took over, and this scene was terrifying to me. That was a bit that kept me up that night. When I watch it now, it's terrible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty bad. It's
100%.
It's just like two red lights, right? That's not what it is.
It's so scary.
It's like a fucking Jawa there or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I don't even know if that was even decent for the times as far as
No.
go, but it looked absolutely terrible.
Perspective: Star Wars came out 2 years before this movie.
So
the special effects were not impressive.
Hey,
So
real quick
weird.
about your imagination. You will never believe that a couple of weeks ago I watched an entire movie and I thought it was in color. Can you believe that? My imagination took over.
So I've heard. So we've heard. I hate black and white movies. Thankfully, this one's in color. Lydia and I are. What the fuck are you talking about?
Wait,
Did you watch a version that
Did
was
you watch a
in color?
colorized version?
Wait, let me check. Nope, it was not in color.
One of the best moments by far.
Yes.
So she sees this and it terrifies her because she's afraid of red lights. She got a lot of traffic tickets.
It's a whole thing.
They could have had something out of all the scenes in this movie that are not scary. They could have had something really scary here. And I know people that saw this movie when they were kids and were terrified by that. So, they had something. I mean,
the concept is really scary. It's a really scary concept that your child, and that's why they made many, many movies about this kind of similar thing, that your child has an imaginary friend that's actually a ghost, and you see the thing. That's a terrifying concept.
Yes.
Derek, can you imagine if Clark was talking to you about his imaginary friend, right? And then you're like, oh yeah, is that your imaginary friend Bobo or whatever? And then you walk into his room and you see a fucking 6-foot clown standing in the corner. Like, that's terrifying, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, we're out. But, so yeah, I get the concept is really scary. Just execution is, whew.
I would venture to say that the cat scene was almost more scary than this scene.
At least there was a scary sound that went with it. Jody's just was like bing, and then like music went bah, bah, bah. So there's Jody. But that's not our last glimpse of Jody. We'll talk about her in just a few minutes. So our crew comes up with a plan at the Witch's Brew too. His friend says, hey, listen, I'll watch the kids for you. You and Kathy go out. You need to get away from that place, even if it's for a night. Which actually gives you potential to have some scary stuff happen that they have to explain to the Lutzes. So yeah. I remember as a kid, that's kind of where I thought it would be going. That's a logical story choice, I feel like, right? I mean, it's a logical story choice.
I agree.
But instead, they go there, and Psychic Lady's he's like, I'm going to go in and talk to Kathy, and you guys can come in a few minutes. I'm like, what? Like, you're like, yeah. I got to make sure it's cool, guys. I am married. But, so the Psychic Lady's just like, I feel the pull. It's coming from the basement. That's where all the evil dwells, apparently, as it does. Mm-hmm. So George goes up and talks to Kathy, and she talks about the Jody thing, and he's like, sure it wasn't a cat. One of those fuckers scared me the other night. That's probably what he's thinking. Listen, jumped right out at me. Loudest cat I've ever heard in my life.
It was so loud.
It's the loudest cat. So the friend's wife or girlfriend, whoever she is, the Psychic Lady, decides to just go down into their basement without their permission, and then just grabs a hammer and starts demolishing the wall.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't make it a habit of going into other people's houses and smashing down their walls.
If you went into an evil house, though, you don't ask permission.
Jamie, when I come back to your house, I'm going to bring a sledgehammer, and I'm going to start bashing down one of your walls, and I just want you to ask me what I'm doing, because I've got the perfect response.
What are you doing?
I'm remodeling.
Yeah. Because
I'm looking for ghost cavities in your house.
The red room is around here.
Yeah.
So George comes down and says, what are you doing? She's like, the evil's in here. And he's like, you're right. There's a draft here. There's something here. Which I'm assuming is why he got the blueprints. It's never really explained. I'm assuming that's the point of it, right?
Yeah.
But so they smash down the wall. Oh my God, guys. I'm glad we're all sitting down for this. And we reveal the red room. What are your guys' thoughts on the red room and the reveal of it?
Might as well have been purple. It was really lame. Like, you could have had, like, skeletons in there. You could have had, I don't know, like a herd of elephants in there. Something. I don't know where the elephants came from, but something other than the walls just being painted red. And I don't even think it's really stated if it's blood or not. Is that an assumption that you make? I
Well,
don't know. but
supposedly
it
the Red
very-
Room. Supposedly the Red Room is the gates to hell. Are you typing
Sure.
it?
No. Dang it. You can't hear that.
I hear it loud and clear.
It did not sound like that.
Sounds more like. Lydia, what are your thoughts on the Red Room?
Well, I'm trying to like just find a picture of it, and I typed in Amityville Red Room.
Yeah.
You know,
There it
that's what
is,
they
right. So right there, Lydia. Down one more. Right there, yeah.
Yep, right there.
There's that.
There it is. There's the Red Room, and there's the Ronnie DeFeo, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
So what are
I
your
think
thoughts?
it's funny that they. I don't even think it's ironic. I think it's funny that they made the distinction that these two characters look alike.
Oh God, there's Jody
Like-
right there.
Oh yeah.
What? Where?
Kind of in the middle.
this-
Yeah, right there.
I mean, how scary is that?
It's very scary. Very scary. Terrifying.
You know, like when you had like VCRs and they would just have this like lights, and you would just see
Mhm.
them in the nighttime.
Yes, Dad used to call those vampires because it sucked his electricity.
Yes.
But do you think that is was it a wise choice or a stupid choice for them to have these two characters and like they're trying to connect them that they look alike?
Well, that was a smart choice, I feel like, because it was based in truth. The characters did look alike, and people had mentioned that they both kind of look similar. They both have the same, but it's the 70s. They just have the same style. They both
Like
have
everybody
brown hair,
looks like that.
a beard, a big curly hair and beard. So yeah, I don't know what that's supposed to mean as far as the movie goes. I guess you're supposed to make the connection that the demons are going to take him over because they allude to the demons. Kathy has a dream that George is killing them all with an axe.
Yeah.
So they're alluding to the fact that he's going to repeat Ronnie's murders because the voices are going to tell him to. But that never happens. That never even starts to happen.
Except in the dream.
Yeah, except the dream.
There's a scene where he cracks. He's sitting downstairs by himself
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
grabs his hair and he's like, I'm
Oh,
falling
that's the most
apart.
overacting in this movie, actually. I can't take it anymore. It's tearing me apart. Yeah. That whole bit.
Yeah.
I really like the woman's acting.
No,
I
Margot
forget what you
Kidder
said
is
her
very
name.
good in this movie. Margot
No,
Kidder's-
not the friend that.
Oh, the psychic friend?
Yes.
Yeah. So during this scene right here in the red room, he knocks the wall over and he sees a reflection of which we just showed you a picture of basically Ronnie DeFeo looking back at him. It's supposed to be like the gates of hell is what so portal to hell is what the red room's supposed to be, I guess. And then the woman starts reciting something, and it's coming through with like a male, like the priest. Is that supposed to be the priest's voice coming through her? Because she's reciting it at the same time, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense. So
This is where the intercut scene is
Between them, yeah.
The preacher is in the church.
and he screams,
And
and he's like yelling.
yeah.
He's already blind at this point, I do believe. And he's just yelling. And then, so that happens. They find the red room. That's a thing. And then the next bit is basically they have some more like kind of riffs between the two of them, right? Like she goes downstairs to confront him and like, you heard that noise too? You heard what was coming out of her voice, blah, blah. And then he smacks her. And her nose like busts open, bleeding.
Oh,
And then he like plays it off like nothing happened. He goes and picks up his stuff and she plays it off like nothing happened. I mean, she's terrified, of course. Then she goes to the priest. That's where she goes to visit the father for the last time. and they can't find him because she's going through it. And so she goes and does her own research and finds out that George looks just like Ronnie, which is also mentioned at the Witch's Brew when the guy goes to give him his drink and he's like, "You're a dead ringer for that DeFeo kid." So we get this hammered in like it was a poem explaining werewolves. And so
doesn't the police officer make a comment about that as well?
Yes, the police officer makes a comment of it when he meets him. "Are you related to the family that lived here? Because you look an awful lot like him. No offense." You're just like, what? Who says that to people? Whatever, either way. So the basically we're rolling towards the end here. There's this weird bit. I don't remember what the context is, but like they go to bless the house. They go and grab the crucifix off the wall, and it's upside down and it's stained black. So they grab it and clean it off, and they're walking through the house, blessing it. And then the cross falls out of his hand, like it gets pulled out of his hand. She goes to grab it, and then these weird like bumps appear on her, like boils. Is that what they're supposed to be? Do you guys remember this scene? And there's like really bad makeup on her face.
Yeah, so this actually happens later on in the movie as well, when he's about to hit her with the axe and he sees this old lady. When he goes to hit her with the axe, she turns into an old lady, because that's a plot line from the book. In the book, he talks about how she ages like 40 years in front of his eyes, and she's like an extremely hideous old woman and what have you. So they tried to throw it in the movie without any context, without meaning anything. Just so confusing.
She's just randomly an old woman.
I just thought he was afraid of old people. It's like, I gotta kill you.
So yeah, that bit happens. What do you guys think of that? Of the whole blessing the house thing? And then, you think that's scary or anticlimactic? What do you think?
It's a waste of time.
I'm wondering why I've liked this movie for so many years that I'm just like, this is a great movie.
Yeah.
Like, now that we're talking about it and analyzing it, it's like, this movie is not actually that great.
It's kind of, you take off your nostalgia goggles and you're like, eh.
Yeah, that must be it.
So we're in the end game now. And this is one of the most...
All right, Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's one. This is where this is the part of the movie that when I was a kid, I always remembered being terrifying. This is what I was building up to. When I was watching it this last time, I was like, the rest of this movie has been very underwhelming to me, and not feeling it like I thought, like I thought I would. It's just, it's like, what? But the end here, the final night of the house, of them staying in the house, is scary. Like all the shit goes down. So we're at the final night. And what do you guys think of the final night here? Because here's what we get. We get some bleeding walls.
And stairs.
We get some bleeding stairs. We get Kathy thinks that George is trying to kill the kids, so they're locked in a bathroom. This is where George is downstairs and he looks in the window and he sees Jody. Do you guys remember this? He sees Jody, who is like a pig.
Yes.
Do you remember this? And it's horribly like composited in. It's a composite shot. It's not very well done. You want to pull it up, Lydia?
I'm gonna look at it.
Okay, look at it, and then we'll pop it up on the screen here. So he sees Jody, and that's why he grabs the axe to go upstairs. And that's why he's hollering for Missy, is because he sees the pig creature and he's scared and he's trying to get her away from it. Kathy interprets this as him trying to kill the kids.
I mean, he does go at the door with an axe.
Well, that's because he thinks they're in there.
I know.
And so he starts chopping it down. She's afraid, of course. and she's like, "Don't hurt my babies," and that's where she randomly turns into an old woman. Oh, we're gonna see it. There it is. Yes. Oh yeah.
Is this not the most confusing thing?
Yes,
To just see a pig.
It's super confusing. So in the novel, they explain that Jody's like a pig-like creature, right? They describe her as being like a really tall, big, and humanely, like unbelievably, unexplainably big creature with glowing red eyes that has a pig and a dog mixed or whatever. This is their interpretation of it, and it's this one shot right here, and it has no context. So you have no idea what you're seeing. If I didn't know the backstory to this, I would have no idea. I'd have no idea who Jody is, or that was supposed to be Jody. I wouldn't know what that was supposed to be. Would you guys?
No.
Nope.
So anyway, so he sees that, he goes up, saves her, or tries to save her, finds out that that's going on. Oh, it's not working. And they decide to leave the house. And so, guys, they just legitimately leave the house. No problems. Like, so the windows bust out, and they just leave the house, right? I mean, it's not even like a challenge for them to leave. What do you guys think of this?
It's only derailed once they realize they forgot their dog.
Yeah, which we'll get to. Which I wrote in my notes that
didn't he have a little bit of trouble getting the door open?
Not really. Yeah, kind of like but he's just kind of casually looking back. It's not like there's not a lot of energy and angst for this horror that's happening around them, and they have to exit.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, about him going back for the dog, I would go back for my dogs too. There's 0% chance I would leave them there. Mm-hmm. I was thinking that when I was watching it last night. I looked down, Lily was laying at my feet, and I was like, I'd come back for you, don't worry. But like, I just have a problem that the whole family was able to escape so easily. Like, there wasn't like more obstacles in their path to keep them there. It just was a couple bleeding walls, some bleeding stairs, some flies, of course, because of course there's flies, and that was it. George goes back in to save the dog, and again he falls through the stairs into, like, there's a blood pit randomly in the red room now, or a goop pit, which was alluded to earlier when the goop was coming out of the toilet, right? But he falls into a goop pit, and the dog ends up pulling him out of the goop pit. Then he picks up the dog and breaks a window, and they leave, and the movie abruptly ends with a title card that says, Lutz family stayed here for X amount of days, left their belongings, never came back, and moved to another state. The end. So what do you guys think of the ending of this movie? Let's start with you, Lydia.
Yeah, I guess I'm realizing that it's not as good as I remembered it being. It's a nostalgia thing. I love seeing 70s movies. It's just fun to watch. So I think it's a fun movie. But it is like, when you actually look at it, it's like, why did they choose these things? I think all the choices were just poorly made.
Yeah, so like the ending in particular, right? I mean, when we think about the 2005 remake, which isn't spectacular either, it's fine. I think it's serviceable. It strays even more from what the truth was. But there's stakes to that, right? The family's actually in danger. There's a ticking clock. There's the Ketchum. Then there's Ryan Reynolds' character trying to kill the family. He's beset. There's all of this stuff going on. There's a big rooftop fight. It's momentum. It's building to something. This one,
And
not
there are
so
actual
much.
scares.
Yeah. Derek, what are your thoughts on the ending of this movie?
It should have ended in the first 45 seconds.
Okay. Besides that, like, the actual ending of this?
It was real sloppy. You touched on it. There was absolutely no momentum. It was kind of chaotic. When he goes back for the dog, that's fantastic. He falls through the floor, and then the dog's kind of, I feel like, trying to attack him.
Yeah,
At first,
he doesn't know who he
realizes
is. Yeah.
who he is. Yeah, and then, it's just kind of sloppy.
Well, I feel my biggest problem with it is that we're building up to this, and I remember it much scarier in my mind when I was a kid. And also, I read the novel, and the last night in the novel is really scary. It's really scary. I remember reading this novel by myself at night in my room, and looking over my shoulder just as I'm reading, like, man, can you imagine if this stuff really did happen? That would be scary if it really did. But the way it's told, there's momentum to it. The last night is more terrifying. In the novel, characters levitate. That's stuff that happens. There's more supernatural instances, whereas in the movie, there's not really a lot, is there?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's as good a place as any to kind of just discuss the overall movie.
So real quick, the last thing I'll say about this specific ending is it really threw me off when, like, she was an old lady. Like, there was
You're still
little to
harping
no
on it. Yeah.
context to that. It just didn't make any flipping sense. Because he looks at her, and then not only that, but, like, does he not recognize this person? Because he swings the axe at her.
He does not. He does not recognize her.
Yeah, that kind of sums up the movie. Like, we're gonna throw this random thing in there. We're not really gonna explain any of it. Just go with it, I guess.
Yeah. So what I feel like they tried to give us the best parts of the novel. And I think maybe if it was under a different direction, maybe it would have been better executed, some of these ideas. But the script doesn't help either.
They had 2 hours to convey these ideas.
They did, and they spent a lot of them
A lot of
talking about
downtime.
house finances and the mayor from Jaws.
Even like that right there. All these, like, kind of side stories that they never really truly paid off. Like, you could have invested that time into the story building and made that, like, at the end, whenever she appears, she's old. Give some context to that earlier in the movie, or build that up a little bit. But I think you're right. It's just they spent all this other time on these subplots that didn't make any sense.
Listen, they tackled real horror, like checks bouncing and missing money.
It's true.
And George randomly
Day to
having
day.
bites on his leg, which, by the way, that doesn't make sense in the movie, right? That he has the leg bites.
Uh-huh.
The context for it is that dragon statue is supposed to have bit him, because in the novel something similar happens. I think it's actually with the bearskin rug instead, but it's supposed to have come alive and bit him. So instead, we just have a random scene where he's sitting downstairs and he has bites on his leg, and we just kind of pan towards the dragon, and you're just kind of like, what?
Did the dragon bite him? So that also
Wait,
makes
what?
me wonder if there's a director's cut out there that's like 2.5 hours long.
No, I don't want to watch it. That'd be even
I don't
more
either.
boring, I would feel like.
But maybe that gives some context to these strange things.
So, let's kind of discuss it. Let's talk about our feelings on this movie now that we've kind of broke it down. Lydia, what do you feel about this movie now? I'll give you time to make your pumpkin rating, but what are your thoughts on it? You seem so dejected.
I
So
don't know what to say. Did I pick this movie?
Yes.
Like,
This was
I
your pick.
really, before this watch, I really liked this movie. I was really excited to watch it and talk about it. I've seen it plenty of times, and now I'm just like a little bit let down, I guess, because I really thought this one was gonna like hold up, and we were gonna be like, that was scary. And now I'm like, man, this movie isn't scary. There's no real scares except for the threat of, losing the idea of family and family members.
Yes, which is kind of, I feel like, the central theme of the movie, if there was one. And I feel like it a better craftsman of a filmmaker would have crafted the story in a way that would, because the story relies on dread, right? A real craftsman like a James Wan would be able to tell this story where we feel the dread in every moment. So these kind of slower scenes are building towards that dread, and we're afraid for this family and what could lurk around the corner. The problem is the pedestrian-ish, and I hate to say that. I don't want to sound cruel or like I'm knocking somebody, but the direction is kind of pedestrian. And it's kind of, there's just that and the editing, it lacks energy to move forward, I feel like. So it's just, instead of being dread, like inducing dread, it's just dreadful.
I mean, you get it. Like, they kind of are pushing it too, because they're like, you get the beginning with the red, and it's like a warning, and then you go into them walking through the house, and it's cutting every 5 seconds to kind of like hammer the idea that these murders happened right here. And then they just keep like saying things that are supposed to be scary, but they never really like are.
It's like this movie went to the school of, they did the opposite of filmmaking. They do tell, don't show. So, a big filmmaking no is to tell, don't show. You want to show your audience. So which is more effective? If I have two characters sitting down and character one tells character two, hey, this happened on my day, and this explosion happened, and I fought these ninjas. Or you see character one go through the journey of the explosion and fighting the ninjas. Since film is a visual medium, obviously scenario 2, right?
There was a scene though where she is in the kitchen and she like it's like the camera's behind her and she's got the pigtail. We didn't even mention that she has those pigtails.
There's a lot of, it's
movie.
the 70s. It's the 70s.
These
Call
pigtails
those bicycle handles
are the
Jesus
worst
criminy.
pigtails you could possibly have. But so she's in the kitchen and she turns around and she's like, she sniffs like ferociously and like looks around and she's like, they never talk about, but like obviously she like smelled like a perfume or something.
It's supposed to be the
that
foul.
was
It's supposed to be the foul odor. There's
was
sulfur. These are
but
things
they
that are in the
never-
novel, but they never come out.
say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
She
they
just, like,
expecting
turns
everybody
and
that has
sniffs.
watched? It's like they're expecting everybody that's watched this to have read the novel and be like,
Yeah.
oh, this
Ah.
isn't a Batman comic book, guys. This isn't like something that's been read by millions of people throughout the world all the time. So it's not like, when you see the Joker, you're like, I know who that is. Because of course you do.
Mhm.
It's the Joker. Batman's been around for 80 years.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. This movie.
Derek, what are your kind of just thoughts on the movie? Lydia is dejected because she's just been her eyes open, and she's thinking, oh my God, this is a bad one.
Breaks my heart.
It is kind of heartbreaking because you do, like I said, I only had one real memory of this movie, and that was him losing money. But like, I remember.
Time out. We've got to talk about that real fast. I love that in this movie, that's the only thing he remembered. That shows how not scary it is. We should have taken that as an omen, really.
Yeah.
That your only memorable, like my always takeaway was Jody's eyes, the pig stuff, and the bleeding walls. But Years was like, I remember a guy losing money. Go ahead.
So yeah, I feel like a couple of things with this movie that really bring it down. One is the taking it in a direction and not connecting it somehow, or the randomness of some things. Also, the editing in this movie. There's one that we didn't talk about that I did write in my notes, and it's when George goes down to the basement for the first time, and one of the young boys follows him down there, and you just cut to him like falling down the stairs. Like,
well, it shows the light burst.
Yeah,
is what caused him to fall down the stairs, I guess.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's
but
just
like
I
didn't even know he was following him. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
well, no, we didn't know that at all. Yeah,
there's no context to.
There's one really weird edit, since we're talking about it real fast. There's one really weird edit where, like, I guess most of the way through the movie or so, we get a bit where it just for no reason flashes back to the red tint of the house. And like, it just doesn't make sense. It's just there kind of like to fill a frame. And when I watched it, I was like, why is that there? I wrote it in my notes. I was like, that's weird. Let's just go into your thoughts and ratings on this. So what would you give Amityville, and what are your final thoughts on this one?
So I gave Amityville a 6.5. And maybe that's too generous, I guess. I don't know. But I will say that this movie could have been a great movie. It could have been a good movie. It had a very strong opening, aside from that like freeze frame on the stairs. And then I feel like it was all downhill from there. So
do you think this movie is scary?
No, I don't think this movie is scary at all. Honestly, the saddest thing about this movie is the degrading of the relationship between George and the kids and his wife, because you could tell, like, in the first part of this movie, like they really do love each other, and I thought they had really good chemistry in the beginning. And so like that aspect, just to watch him deteriorate over the course of this movie, was the saddest thing about this movie.
But again, not scary, right?
Nope.
I just want you to think about your rating as we go through this. Lydia, what are your thoughts on Amityville, and what is your rating for it?
So I'm gonna rate it. I think I'm gonna give it a 5. I think the best thing about this movie is the acting.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really good too.
The actors did amazing. They were all great. They're all fun to watch. I wasn't like bored by the acting, and I think that's probably why I'm fond of this movie. You know, they're great. All the actors are great.
Yeah, I agree with that. I especially like Josh Brolin and Margot Kidder a lot. I think they're really good, well cast in this movie, and like you said, they're both good-looking people, easy on the eyes, and like they have a great smooth chemistry together, like you said, Derek. So yeah, I agree with that. Anything else you want to add? I
think that's it. I don't have anything else I want to say about
Is this movie scary, Lydia?
No, it's not. That's the interesting thing, is that it is more just sad. Yeah, it's more sad than it is scary. I mean, maybe that's the scary thing, is how sad the relationships are in this. It's like nobody wants that, nobody wants to see a relationship disintegrate, especially if it's like caused by something that's unseen,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good analysis you guys have with the relationship thing. I think the saddest part about this movie is the editing.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
So I grew up with this movie, and I was talking to Dad about it earlier, and he was like, "Oh, that's a good one. That's a scary one. Yeah, that's a fun one. It's great." And when I watched it last night, I wrote all these notes, and I was like, man, I don't think it's very good. I just don't think it's a very good movie. I still have fondness for it. I still will have a fondness for it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, this doesn't seem like this isn't a very scary movie. I was like, it's not even spooky, like creepy. It's just a lot of just stuff kind of happening, and then most of the time stuff not happening. So I came into this review prepared to give it about a 6. We talked about it. I hashed it out. And the fundamental question that kept popping into my mind was what I kept asking you guys, which was, is it scary? This movie is called the Amityville Horror. Is it scary? It's not. So the Amityville Horror gets a 4 from me. 4 out of 10. Yes, it's the same rating as Puppet Master.
Wow.
You know why? Because Puppet Master is entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's actual kills. Something happens.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I'll come back and think about it. We'll do like a yearly wrap up at the end of this season, and maybe I'll re-rate this movie a little higher to maybe a 5. But right now, I'm thinking it's a, I'll give it a little nudge. It's 4.5 out of 10. Because I feel bad giving it this exact same rating as goddamn Puppet Master. It's just not very scary, and it's kind of sloppily made. They were trying, in my opinion, to make a prestige horror film like The Exorcist. And I think that's where a lot of different plot points come from, too. I think that's where the priest plot point comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where the detective plot point comes from, is, The Exorcist being the cultural phenomenon that it was.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to also remember that when this came out in 1979, horror was moving away from that trend as well. They just didn't know it because while they were filming this, John Carpenter's Halloween was released, which changed the landscape of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Changed it from the boogeyman, like the haunted house, to slashers. So, yeah, 4.5 for me, guys. You sticking with that 6.5, Derek?
Yep.
You're just being stubborn. You want to lower it.
6.5.
Look at it. Did you give it a 0.5 now? Oh.
No, it was 6.5.
Isn't that funny that he gives like good movies bad, and then he gives bad movies good?
Yeah, we're gonna
Like
have
points?
to work on his rating system. Maybe if we keep judging it harshly enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've
never.
Yeah, I don't know. I really want to defend this.
I do too. There's a part of me that really wants to not give it that low of a rating. There's a part of me that wants to talk about how good it is, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's
I know exactly what you mean. I'm the one that picked this movie.
Yeah, when we were discussing it, like seriously, I had it as I wrote 6 out of 10. I was like, that's about 6 out of 10. And then we discussed it and we talked about it more and more, and then I started seeing all the zooms in my head, and I'm like, nah, man, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a bad. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's just boring and not scary, and slightly sloppy.
And confusing.
And very confusing. Derek, you just talked about all the confusing shit in this movie, and you're going to give it a 6.5.
Yep.
I think the acting deserves a 10.
The acting is very good. Well, I wouldn't say a 10. I would say about an 8, because there are points where they kind of go a little too over the top with some of the acting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about, Derek?
It's a horror movie. Yeah. Like, it should have been that amplified. It should have been over the top a little,
If that was the tone they were going for, but the tone they're going for like more serious. This is a serious motion picture.
The only consistent thing that they had that I can really recall from this movie is that, like, how he just deteriorates scene by scene. Every time you see him, he looks a little weaker. He looks a little more tired and worn down.
Overall,
it's just...
It's about a 4.5, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I
think-
might go so far as to lower it to a 6, but I'm gonna stay at 6.5.
We're already wearing him
Stubborn.
down, Lydia.
A
We're
little
already
bit.
wearing him down.
We almost got him right there. I think what we need to do to really get a full picture is watch the remake with the Ryan Reynolds one. What year did that come out?
2005.
2005. That's
just
a
need-
bad. That's not a great year for horror. I feel like.
No.
But
no.
I do like after watching this. I think that one is at least scarier.
Well,
than
it's
this
definitely.
one.
I think it's definitely scarier. It's a. It has more. It's definitely more energetic,
Mhm.
and it's a lot shorter. I think too. Which goes a long way. What's on the agenda next week, Derek?
Children of the Night.
Children of the. Oh God, damn it! 2 back-to-back stinkers, really?
Well, this one's gonna definitely not get above a 5 from anybody.
Children of the Night. So, where can folks watch Children of the Night?
You can't. You have to buy it off the internet.
Okay. So this is a great movie to review, so people can watch along. Great decision by us to do this movie.
I put this on the shared drive, so Lydia, we'll have to get you connected so that you can watch this movie.
So,
That would be
Children
awesome.
Special.
Children of the Night. I'm really, folks. I don't know where you find this. Maybe some people out there know about it. I don't know where to help you. This was not our greatest marketing idea to do this one. This was a Derek pick, so blame him. You know what you guys should do? Movies that nobody have seen and/or can watch.
Or have heard of, or
Well, this is the second one. Derek also picked Popcorn.
that's true.
What are we gonna do? All right, so Children of the Night. What year is that from, Derek?
I have no idea.
Look it up so I can give our audience some heads up.
Let's see. Children of the Night
I have no idea.
is from
1991.
1991.
Yes. So 1991's Children of the Night. Search it out. Hopefully you can find it. We will be doing that one next week. In the meantime, watch out for some new news on the movie that probably has already come out by the time this episode airs, because we'll be releasing the release date for the movie. What I forget? Oh, you're right. You know what? Before we do any of that, we've got to aconize the Amityville Horror. I did not want to besmirch Tom Atkins' name with this movie, but let's do it. Who would Tom Atkins play, guys? I kind of already know who we would play.
The Preacher.
Who would he play? You think he'd play the preacher?
Yeah, why not?
Lydia, who do you think he'd play? I know we're attached to these actors, but I know who Tom Atkins would play.
Who would he play?
I would cast Tom Atkins as George.
Yeah.
I would cast him as George, for sure. Let him... Imagine Tom Atkins swinging an axe, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, he does have a sex scene, so he's, you know.
Yeah, he's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say George. I love James Brolin in this. I think he's perfectly cast. But, you know, you can't go any better than Tommy A for the win always.
I actually take my my pick back. I would probably make him the friend, like the co-owner of the business.
I was going to say maybe the friend. But, yeah, I don't know.
It had to be George. I mean, we could cast him as Jody. instead of the eyes. Derek, I want you to create an image right here where it's Tom Atkins' head in the tree instead of Jody's blinking eyes.
That probably won't happen, but I'll see what I can do.
I'll create it. You just put it in right here.
Okay.
Instead
you
of-
create it, I'll put it in there.
Just Photoshop the pig out of the window and just put Tom Atkins in the window.
We'll put him from like fucking Night of the Creeps with his trench coat and everything. I love it. That's a great idea, I think. And well, I guess that's Amityville. It's been actonized, and we have decided that it's not as good as we remembered. Sometimes nostalgia plays tricks on us, guys. So be sure to like, subscribe, visit the Facebook page at Hyla Productions. Visit us on Twitter. You can follow me at Racket, Rakkет. You can follow us on Instagram at Screen Bloody Movies. And you can also see us, obviously, on the YouTube page of Hyla Productions. Stay tuned for movie updates. They'll probably have already been released about the release date of the movie. And you'll get all your new news about Secret Admirer and the other stuff that we're doing. Also, stay tuned for some special stuff coming up. And hopefully you liked our costumes from last episode. As a matter of fact, if you did, be sure to comment your favorite version of Tom Atkins that we wore last week. Yes. So without, you guys have anything else?
Maybe if anybody enters into our costume contest, next episode we'll give a shout out to whoever we think is the best costume.
Yes, so we'll have to splice that bit into the episode before this one.
That's why I was like, how do I say?
Yeah,
I know we talked about like having
so
people enter their
on a future episode we'll call you out.
Yes.
Because it can't be.
Well, this episode's the costume's already going to have happened, so we have to do it in the Halloween episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we hadn't have filmed it.
Yeah, well,
we'll work it out.
Right. Yeah, so it'll have to go after this one.
Well, Halloween takes place before this one, so
yeah, I know.
We'll call it out on Halloween and tell them to comment on this episode.
Okay.
Right?
We'll figure it out.
Network, something like that. Either way, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, I guess. I've lost completely. I was on a roll. I got messed up.
I'm so sorry.
Definitely, if you've entered the contest, we'll be announcing winners probably by the next episode. So be sure to keep an eye on all the pages. And remember, for Lydia Judy and Derek Lemaster, I'm Jamie Hiles. And if you're going to scream bloody movies.
Bloody movies.
You guys were in sync. I was like way ahead of you guys. Scream bloody movies.
Right every week.
See you next week, folks.